75% of kids drop out of organized sports by the time they get to high school. It's a lot. It's 1 in 40,000 make it to the D1 level, and it's 1 in 300,000 that make it to the pros. Like, what are you doing to set yourself apart? And if you can't deal with a simple adversity of not, okay, you're not getting the playing time, you're getting healthy scratched. You gotta ask some questions. You gotta look in the mirror and say, okay, what's going on? You can't just point the finger and blame a coach or blame the situation. Look in the mirror sometimes.
What's going on, Samson Strength Coach Collective listeners? On today's episode, we have Director of Sports Performance for Olympic Sports at Arizona State University, Liane Blyn, also a former Director of Olympic Strength and Conditioning here at Appalachian State, where I currently work, and we got to meet just a couple months ago, so I'm very excited to have you on the podcast. Liane, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was unbelievable meeting you 2 months ago or whenever it was I was out there. You've done some unbelievable things at App since I had left. So I was excited to see all that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of much smarter strength coaches have done the unbelievable things. I've just been able to figure out how to not run it down to the ground at this point. So
it's unbelievable.
But it was great too. And this is always something I like bringing up because a lot of younger strength coaches, I feel like, get nervous about cold emails or cold calls or whatever it may be. And you just emailed me and said, hey, I'm going to be in Boone on these couple, days. What works best for you? You stopped by. We had a great visit and everything worked out well. It was something that can happen, and it's not something where people have to freak out about just reaching out to random coaches.
Yeah, you're right. People do get freaked out. But I've always been taught that's how you meet people. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. So reaching out, making connections, meeting people, and you never know when you're going to meet them again down the road, or someone else has that connection with that person. So it's one of the best things you can do as a young strength coach. It's how I got my first job. I reached out to Mike Jones back in the day at Nevada and said, hey, it was snail mail, by the way, and a phone call, no email. But it was like, hey, I'm going to be in Reno. I'm going skiing. I'd love to sit down and meet with you and have a conversation. And I'm looking to get into this profession. So that was 30 years ago, a long time ago. And, he found me a year later and said, hey, I have a job open. And the rest is history there. That's pretty much how I started my journey as a full-time person. So full-time strength coach.
You wrote a physical letter?
I wrote a physical letter. I did.
Okay, that maybe I understand a little bit how the younger strength coaches feel now, because that makes me nervous to think about writing a physical letter.
Yeah, physical letter. It was phone calls, physical letters. Like it was different than it is now. Like email for me didn't come out until I was my first year of grad school in 1995. So,
wow, and so very much that must have been very different methods of communication.
Yes, I'm dating myself. I'm definitely dating myself, but totally different communication. Like you pick up phone, you'd leave a voicemail, you'd leave your phone number or beeper number if you had a beeper at that point too. Like again, that's kind of my generation. Way back in the day. So
well, one thing I'm really curious about too, and trust me, we'll get to your background soon because I want to go through everything. But I've always thought about this, right? I mean, how many times have you now received a text, the night before that something has changed in the schedule, or, we're going to have to modify this, or can you be available at this time, or even just a head coach calling you at 9 p.m. asking about what happened? Like, was it completely different? Did people have to stick to a regimented schedule?
It was a schedule. It was what I still use now, a paper calendar. Written and everything is written down, and that's what you go by. You would get your actual paper calendar schedule for the whole season or the first half of the season, and that's what they would go by. Like things didn't change back then. It was this is practice. We are practicing from 4 to 6. Weights are before or after, and it was held to. So it was a much easier time than with all this wonderful technology that we have, that you are available 24/7.
Well, there's some really good parts about it, but there's some really bad parts about it. Yes. I mean, now we get our schedule Sunday nights the week before. And so it's literally on that Sunday night. That's when my wife and I will sit down and we'll look at the calendar, and I'll have to tell her, "Hey, I'm going to be home at this time on these specific days," because and it's also all subject to change quickly.
Yes, quickly. I'm very grateful and very blessed, working for hockey, working for Coach Powers. He's so organized, and just knowing like our block is from 8 to 12 basically every day. Our guys know that, hey, we have class from 12 o'clock on. That's your time. My time is from 8 to 12 or 7 to 12. I'll do lifts sometimes before, but a little bit before, and like he respects the guy's time. Like
Mm.
we know that you're a student as well, so you're not just an athlete, you're a student as well. And I know I get here at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 in the morning, depending, and I'm done. Boys, last guy usually leaves here. The guys are walking out right now. It's 12:15, so they'll be here till about 1 o'clock or so, doing messing around, doing stuff. So
That's
uh,
awesome, though. It's a great
yeah,
schedule and
it's
it's
I love
regular.
it. I love
Yeah.
it. It's regular. I've had coaches though that are all over the map that would give you a phone call the night before. This has changed, that's changed, and it's really hard. It's hard on staff, but it's also hard on your student athletes. It's hard on your athletes when things change, when they think it's supposed to be one way. Like, hey, okay, I know I can set my. If you're a planner, some athletes are planners, some are not, but some are, and it's like, okay, I know I'm going to lift, I'm going to practice, and then I have to do A, B, C, and D. And it's really hard for athletes to hold them accountable sometimes when you can't hold yourself accountable from a schedule standpoint. And, oh, we're going to change this. Or if a coach shows up late, you don't want your athletes to show up late. You as a coach, why are you showing up late to run the
Mm.
practice? So I've seen it all. Seen it
Yeah.
all.
Well, I think that's the perfect segue into our next segment. Can you just give me a breakdown of your career, where you've been, and then what's led you to Arizona State?
Ooh, okay, so 30 years in a nutshell. I grew up in a small town in Massachusetts, Southwick, Massachusetts. Played field hockey and softball. I was an athlete through high school and athlete through college. I honestly didn't think I was going to go to college. I went to Endicott College, which was small back then, JUCO, all women's school. Imagine that, me going to all women's school. I was there for 2 years. I played field hockey, softball. I was an athletic training major. And back then, like, strength coaches, like, there were no strength coaches in the early 1990s. There were very few, but they were around for football. But I knew I wanted to do something in athletics. And there was athletic training was the closest thing. Did 2 years at Endicott, went to Miami, Ohio to finish my undergrad degree in athletic training. Met Dan Dalrymple, who Dan's a legend in this profession, been around. He's with I think he's with Denver now, but was with the Saints for a long time, New Orleans Saints. He got me into it. I was the strength coach, or I was the athletic trainer for swimming, and I just kind of started hanging around with him. And he's like, "Hey, do you want to do the strength conditioning program for swimming?" I'm like, "Heck yeah, I do." So then I kind of got into that, and then I felt like I wanted to make things happen rather than sit around and wait for things to happen. So I wanted to transition um, out of strength or out of athletic training into strength conditioning. So that's kind of where I went from that. I took a year off, gap year between my undergrad and grad, because finding a GA position, learning about strength conditioning and where to go. There's no email, there's no internet, so you had to do all this research and, okay, what schools have strength coaches? Well, most schools if they had one strength coach, it was with football, or it was no strength conditioning program. The football coach did it, or, again, I'm dating myself. So, did a lot of research looking at where could I go to become a GA or, get experience. Took that year off, worked at a bar, worked at a health club, I got my athletic training certification. So I was NATA certified, worked and volunteered for a doctor in North Carolina as an AT for a while. Then I started reaching out, I had to send 50 to 60 snail mail, email, or snail mail letters out saying, "Hey, here's my resume. I'm looking for a GA spot, whatever." I got two responses back. One was from uh, Rich at NAU, and then the other one was from where was it from? Wisconsin Lacrosse. Um, so I ended up going to NAU. So grad school for 1 year, NAU. I honestly am not a school person. Like, I went to grad school and I was there for a year. NAU, I loved NAU. My time at NAU, I had a lot of great experience, but the school it was cardiac rehab is what I was in. I'm like, I have no interest in cardiac rehab in this program. So, um, job opened up at Nevada Reno, and through my search of looking for a GA position, I had met Mike Jones, who was a strength coach. He was there, the only strength coach there for 18 sports, and that's how it was back in the day. Like, you were the only one and only. He called me, found me out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey, I have a job open, my first ever assistant position. It's 3/4 time. It pays $18,000 a year. Are you interested?" Yeah, I'm interested. I'm in. Packed up my little Honda Civic and I drove up to Nevada from NAU, and I was there for 4 years. Loved my time at Nevada. I got to learn a lot. I had to push the envelope a lot. I worked basically helped out with football. So I was like his right hand person for football. I did 17 other sports, like his right hand person for everything. But the other 17 or 16 sports besides baseball and men's basketball were basically mine. So just had a lot of learning experience, putting things together, coaching wise, making mistakes along the way. I mean, I look at some of my programs back in the day and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? So it's kind of funny to look at that. Was there for 4 years, had the opportunity to go to Boston College. So back home from Massachusetts, I met Mike Poitamani, was at Boston College for 4 years as well. Great experience. But I go from, and jobs haven't changed much. We can talk salaries a little bit later, but, $18,000 a year was my first year at Nevada. And then I had to go fight and say, okay, this is a 3/4 time position. I'm working 6 to 6 Monday through Friday plus Saturday footballs, and to make up the other quarter percentage, I'm working at the fitness center from 6 to 10 o'clock at night. So I went to the senior women's administrator, and in my first year, I said, okay, which 32 hours would you like me to work? I'm like, I can't keep doing this and working basically 80 hours a week. And, they brought me up to full-time salary and full-time job and all that. But even going to Boston College, oh, here's your salary at $35,000 a year. Like, that's what it was. And who can live in Chestnut Hill at $35,000 a year, even in the early 90s? Um, had an unbelievable experience there working for Mike Poitamani. He was awesome. He was a great boss. Met some unbelievable people. One of the best coaches I ever worked for, Al Skinner. I worked men's basketball. Al Skinner was unbelievable to me and his whole staff, Ed Cooley, that whole staff. But also keep in mind, BC had 40 sports. There were 3 strength coaches. Okay. Myself, John Whitesides. Whitesides left after a year that I was there, and Sean Skane came in, and Mike Poitamani was the head guy. I had 22 sports myself. So all these young strength
Oh
coaches
my
that bitch and
gosh.
complain about
Yeah.
I have 5 sports. I don't know what to do with 5 sports. I had 22, dude. Like, and I lived an hour away because I couldn't live in Chestnut Hill on $35,000 a year. So, but it made me learn so much, having to create relationships with so many different coaches and so many different personalities and so many different sports. It was an awesome experience, like an awesome that I will never change for the world. I never change. And sometimes you're in things and you think, God, this sucks. Like, I'm pulling my hair out. I'm not making a whole lot of money. I'm, burning the candle at both ends, driving, got an hour drive in, an hour drive home. I'm working men's basketball and football. I'm on the floor for football as well as my own sports. But I wouldn't change it for the world looking back. Like, it made me the person, and I'm a grind type of person. I've had 3 and 4 jobs when I was in middle school and high school. My grandfather owned a casket company, and when I was 8 years old, I was stuffing pillows at a casket company when I was 8 years old. So I know what work looks like, and I've done that my whole life. So not to draw this out. So after Boston College, Mike Poitamani left, and it sucked. When Poito left and they brought a new guy in, it was really disheartening for me because the guy that they brought in, the guy that there was two people. And one guy was awesome. Like, hey, like, he's gonna be a great fit. He's an awesome, just a great human. And the guy they brought in, not a really good human, basically was told that women should be working with women. Your men's basketball's hoochie mama, like all that crap. And it's like, I get it, but don't be a dick, and sorry. Pardon my French.
No, 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 no.
Um,
That's correct. That's correct verbiage there.
like, so we got into drag down fights every single day, and I finally, like, literally told him to F off every single day because it was disrespectful, and it was like, I'm more than just my gender. Like, and that was in the early 2000s. So, when I was at Nevada, Reno, I had met Joe Ken. So back in 1996, I had met Joe Ken, and he was at Boise State. My husband does a sports medicine for the PBR, Professional Bull Riders. I was at Reno. It was a PBR event in Boise, and so I basically called Joe Ken and I said, "Hey, I'm coming to Boise, PBR event in town. I want to come meet you." And again, just cold call, picked up the phone. Um, "Hey, I want to come meet you. I want to come see what you do, hang out, kind of thing." And walked in the weight room like I own the place. So, and that's how I created the relationship with Rich Gray and Joe Ken back in the day. Um, with that, um, Joe was all over. He was at Boise State, then he was at Utah, and then he came here to Arizona State. And at the time, I was having issues at Boston College. I'm like, I got to get out of this place. He's like, I got a job for you. So I came to Arizona State. I was assistant for him for 2 years. Um, the best job I ever had was working for House. But one of the hardest jobs I ever had was working for House, but best job. And like, he taught me so much in this profession of how to be, how not to be, how to be to people, how to be a human, and just unbelievable person. And we've kept that relationship for so long. After 2 years, the hardest thing I ever did was walk in his office and say, "House, I'm leaving." It was. I'd been in the profession for 10 years as a female, and I'm like, I've been watching all these people get jobs, all these guys get jobs. Like, because back in the day, and I remember there was no director of Olympic sports, there was no football, there was no basketball only, there was no football only. It was you're the director of sports performance for everything. And I was in it for 10 years. And my husband's like, all right, enough is enough. He's like, you've been doing this for so long. He's like, you should be a director. You've worked with football, but people have a hard time giving you a chance and giving you that shot. Like, it is what it is. I mean, even now in the year 2025, there's still not a director that is a female at the head of football at a Power 5 school. There's not. And I don't know if it'll ever be accepted, which is fine, no big deal. But at the same time, like, that's just the harsh reality of this. Same within the NFL. Just a harsh reality. Major League basketball is the only one that's actually taken that step to have women in their space for the most part. In terms of higher level director roles. Um, and that's what you want to do. I love basketball. I love my time in men's basketball. Even at App State, Coach Fox was great to me, and I liked working men's basketball, and I still see some of the guys, and it's either a love or hate sport. I think for some people now it's a little different back than it was back in the day, but yeah. So in 2005, I told House I'm leaving. I got a director's role running Poliquin Performance Center back in Massachusetts, and for me, it was the only way I could expand me as a person, me as a director, me as a leader, was having and running my own place. And back in the day, it was, hey, I made $50,000 at Arizona State. Great, good money, whatnot. But now I can go be a director. And House, don't get me wrong, House gave me a lot of responsibility, a crap ton of responsibility. But it was one of those things like, okay, it's time, I'm ready. And a lot of people have moved on and gotten directors roles and stuff. So went to the private sector. It was a time when, again, no Olympic sport positions were really around, no basketball only was around, but velocities were popping up, Poliquin were popping up, Parisi speed schools were popping up, and you can make a good living being a director at those places. So I went to Poliquin making $80,000 a year, and it's like, hey, I almost doubled my salary, and it ended up Poliquin, rest in peace. Great learning experience. Worked for Art McDermott. Place ended up closing down. The backer wasn't whatever. I ended up opening my own place back in Massachusetts. So I opened up athletic based training. So I was in the private sector for let's see, 2006 to 2014 until I went to App State. Private sector is a great sector. We started a small facility, and I think some people, when they go in the private sector, they think this grandiose, like, I need to have a 20,000 square foot facility. Okay, where are you getting your people from? who you actually gonna, how you gonna fill it? How you gonna pay your bills? How you gonna pay rent? We started with a 1,500 square foot facility, then it went small, and then it went bigger, and we gradually grew, and it was the best thing that we ever did, going from one facility to two facilities to it was just myself, and then I ended up hiring Kevin O'Neill and some awesome people, Manny McLaughlin along the way, and just hiring people. But there was something missing being in the private sector. I missed coaching. And my husband's like, "You're crazy. You could coach in the private sector." And we had an unbelievable middle school, high school pro program. It was awesome. Like, it was unbelievable top to bottom. I'm like, "But I don't get to coach. I'm taking care of all the back end stuff." And he did a lot of business stuff, but there was a lot of the business stuff. So I'm like, "Hey, there's a job open at Franklin High School. It pays $1,200 a semester, a sports season. I'm gonna go do that." And he's like, "Oh, are you crazy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But it's something
Maybe.
that I
Yeah.
would maybe, but it's something I wanna do, and I interviewed for it, and Coach Sidwell and Kate Horseman and, Sue Jacobson, just the whole interview staff, and Coach Sidwell is the head football coach, and he's like, "Hey, it's $1,200 a sports season. I'm bringing you in to work football. Everything else is gravy. You're working 3 days a week. I can't pay you a lot of money." He's like, I'm the AD now. I can't be a strength coach and AD at the same time. I need a good strength coach." I'm like, "Great." I'm like, "I got it." I turned that position of $1,200 a sports season into 5,300 in a sports season to 50 kids in the first program I ever had, football only, to 657 kids in my summer program.
Wow.
And it was just one of those things. We just built it. If you build it, they will come. Is, you know, I guess you say, if you build it, they'll come. If you build something good, they'll come. In season, like, we built a brand new high school, brand new weight room, and it was awesome. And I thought I was going to be there forever. And then App State came calling, and I'm like, kind of feel like I'm missing out on something. Didn't finish something, and I went to interviewed at App State. I thought I was gonna be at App State forever. Like, I thought, like, "Hey, I love Boone." We still have a house in Boone. Like,
Yeah, it's incredible.
it's an incredible spot. I thought it was gonna be my end game, close to retirement, like, finish out. Like, I love coaching and the student athletes I had. Like, I still keep in contact with some of the student athletes, and, I had a great time there. And they've done a lot of great things there. You've done a lot of great things. Doug Gillen's done a lot of great things. The softball facility now is, holy crap, unbelievable there.
Nuts.
It's unbelievable, yeah. But I ended up coming back here, long story short, to ASU in 2018 as the director of Olympic sports. They at that time flipped it to where it wasn't just the director oversaw everything. It was like, "All right, we're splitting football off from Olympic sports." And Joe Connolly took over football, and I took over Olympic sports, and been here for 8 years. So I was kind of a long kind of, like, talk about my path and everything, and there's a lot of stuff in between, but, you know, it's been a great ride. It's been a great run. I couldn't ask for a better group staff that I work with every day. I have a great strength conditioning staff that, they all have 2 and 3 sports. It's not like everyone's running around having 22 sports here. I'm very grateful for that. But I think some people forget, like, the big thing for me is never lose sight of where you're going, but never forget where you came from. And that's a
Mm.
big, huge thing for me. Like, I don't care. I was out in the weight room today vacuuming. Like, yeah, do I have a GA? Do I have an intern that could do that? Absolutely. But I'm not above and beyond doing any of that stuff. Like, you learn as you go. So, but I love my job. I love working with hockey. I love all of our coaches here are awesome. We have a great staff. Our new athletic director, Graham Rossini's done some unbelievable things. We have a new women's basketball coach. She's a hot ticket. She's awesome. Like, I can't wait to see what's going to happen with some of our sports. So, yeah. So I'll stop talking now.
No, 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 no. Seriously, it's perfect. And I mean, I love it because, first of all, it gives me a lot of different things to ask. But it's so, the reason I got in this profession is because I really appreciate everybody who kind of helped pave the way. And you were certainly one of those people. So it's exciting for me to hear about the process and how everything actually came to be and, what your journey was. One of the things that I've done is I've interviewed a lot of older strength coaches who have been around since the start of the profession, who have been male, and I think you'd be the first one who started coaching in the 1980s and early 90s that is female. And you mentioned a couple things that I was very curious about, like I'm sure strength and conditioning as a whole, it was just trying to get people to buy into the profession. But then you've got coaches who are saying that women need to just train women and they need to stay away from male sports. Like, did you face a lot of that throughout your career? Was it just particular pockets, or what was that experience like?
It was particular pockets. It wasn't, there was a lot of people that were open-minded to it, like, Mike Poitamani was awesome, like, even when I was at NAU, and I worked at NAU, Coach Axman, who was the football coach, like, I was lifting one day and I started competing in powerlifting, and he's like, saw what I had on the bar, and he's like, "I need a linebacker. Come out and be my linebacker." And I'm laughing at him, and, so it just depends on who it was. Coach Cutter was the football coach here at ASU when I was here, and I was training for World's Strongest Woman, and so that was back in 2003. I did World's Strongest Woman, and the news station came out, and Jody Jackson came out and interviewed me about going to Zambia, South Africa, and being on World's Strongest Woman. And they interviewed Coach Cutter, and they said, well, how is it having a female work with your football guys? And he's like, no different. He's like, it doesn't matter if they're black, blue, green, white, male, female. It doesn't matter. He coaches my athletes. Like, that's what it is. And for someone to say that, it feels good that someone can see beyond just, again, your gender and what you should be or should be, kind of thing. So, and I've hit roadblocks along the way. When I was back in grad, or not, my undergrad, as an athletic training major, my big dream, I wanted to be the first female athletic trainer in the NFL. And that was like my dream. And this other girl, DJ, she was also an athletic trainer. We were both at Miami, Ohio, and we had to do internships. So back then it was like curriculum and then intern program, and you had to do intern hours and all that. So we both sent our resumes and sent letters again before email, sent letters out to a couple NFL teams, but we had to put our names. I put my name as Lee Cataldo, so gender neutral, and she put hers as DJ. So great, got phone calls back like, yeah, we're interested. And as soon as they found out you were female on the phone, they're like, oh, nope, filled, or nope, can't take you. So it's been an uphill battle, both in, strength conditioning, athletic training. It's becoming more and more prevalent now that, women are just accepted into it. And look, am I crying about it? No way. Like, I think it was the best thing. Adversity, you deal with adversity, you grow from it. Like, you learn from it, you grow from it. I'm not gonna sit and cry about it. Like, hey, you didn't pick me, you didn't pick me. I'm gonna go on and find another job. And now I work for an awesome head coach working with men's hockey. He's awesome. I've worked with other men's coaches before, and it's, you know, whatever. You find your fit, you find your place, and you find your people. And
Mhm.
that's what it is. And if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. You learn from it. Some programs do better with male strength coaches. You just got to find what works better. I mean, there should be no different. I'm a female working with a male sport. What's so different about a male working with a female sport?
Yeah.
Like, Gino Auriemma is arguably one of the best women's basketball coach out there, and he's a male and coaches women, but you don't question him being a male coaching women. Why should it be any different the other way around? So, but again, it's old school. It's kind of having to figure things out and accept that things change. So
Yeah. Well, it's just, I think the example you bring up is just what's so indicative of why it's just this terrible place that people go to when they think of females coaching male sports, because literally you have the resume, you have everything that you could possibly need, and then all of a sudden they find out that you're a female. It's like, well, no, this can't happen.
yeah,
And like you said, the spot's filled immediately. And I think you bring up such a great point too. Like, I two of my three teams here are female sports, and no one's ever once been like, well, is this going to work out? Is Connor going to be able to coach them or not? And obviously that's just a completely incorrect statement, right?
yep,
For you, something that females have to face in this career, and then for males just to never have to worry about it. And like you say, you mentioned roadblocks. Like, I really have not felt that many roadblocks in my career,
yep,
just because of being a male. So I'm glad that ultimately, like you said, the adversity has just allowed you to become even better coach. But at the same time, it's ridiculous that you had to deal with this in the first place. But again, I'm glad too that the field has grown, and now for me, it's one of those things where we had Jess Givens on, who was a female strength coach working with football, and like, it didn't
yep,
even, I didn't even think twice about it, right?
yep.
And so I'm glad that the profession has grown in that way, because it's just ridiculous to completely cut yourself off to half of the population who could be great coaches.
Yeah. It's and even in high school, there's some unbelievable high school strength coaches out there, but sometimes college strength coaches turn their nose up to high school strength coaches because, "Oh, you're at a high school. You're the logo on your chest, you're not big time because 'cause you're not a big time school." Some of the best strength coaches are at high schools. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's because you have to learn how to deal with when you're at a college, Power 5, Power 4 now, if you're in a Power 4 school, you have 5 strength coaches on a football staff, okay? That's 1 to 20. It's pretty freaking easy to coach twenty athletes. If you have to coach all 20 at once, pretty freaking easy. How about coaching a room and figuring out how to put together programs for soccer and then softball and then, all these other sports on top of it. So it's actually pretty easy, I think.
Yeah, I would say so
It's pretty easy.
1,000%. I
Yeah.
mean, especially, because again, I found out the first time I met you that about the same thing. You had 22 sports at one time. I mean, that's insane. Like I'm not, too, we'll say, I can admit it. I get overworked sometimes with 3 sports, and then sometimes I hear stories from other people, and I'm like, all right, this is ridiculous. I need to figure this out because I can't be complaining about having. I mean, my total athletes is like 45. Like
Yeah.
I've kind of got to figure it out a little bit and understand that it's been a lot different for other people throughout their career. Is that frustrating sometimes for you to hear younger strength coaches kind of say that they struggle with 1 or 2 teams, or it's just I feel overworked because I've got 30 total athletes.
Oh, it definitely drives me nuts. It drives me nuts, and that's when I'm like, "Oh god, I'm old." Like, I'm turning I'm like, I'm old and bitching about, this, and I shouldn't be, but it is. I think, go work at a high school. Every single strength coach coming up needs to work at a high school, a mid-major school, and learn how to deal with even here for graduate assistants, like, RGAs don't get sports. Like, they're a secondary for us. I tell people that apply all the time, like, if you're okay being a secondary, then that's what you're gonna be, and sometimes we take people with a little bit less experience, because with someone with more experience, they're gonna be disappointed when you don't get your own sport. If you have more experience, you wanna go to grad school, go to a smaller mid-major school where you're gonna have your own sports, you can make your mistakes there. Um, good, bad, and indifferent. Like, I would rather see people, like, that are really into it go. And for us, like, our 2nd year, like, Billy, my grad assistant now, he's in his 2nd year, like, let him write the hockey program right now, let him write the summer program and, like, "Hey, nope, you fuck it up, it's on you." Like, I let him learn and do some things like that, but, other programs, going to Springfield College and going to grad school there, you get your teams right off the get-go. So, sometimes the logo on your chest and a big time logo on your chest, yeah, do people like having that on their resume? Yeah, great, but it doesn't give you the experience that some of the smaller schools does.
No, for
So
sure. And I mean, I can guarantee if any listeners here want to become a GA at Appalachian State University, we have 3 spots open for next year, and you will get to work with a plethora of teams and get to make your own mistakes. So, but again, those mistakes are what really helps you grow the most. And like you mentioned with yourself, like with having 22 teams, you have no choice but to learn quickly. You have to learn what works, what doesn't, how do you manage weight rooms, and how do you transition from one sport to the other faster. And then
yeah.
all of a sudden, when you have 1 or 2 or 3 teams total, it feels a lot easier to be able to handle it.
Oh my god, it's so easy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, "All right, guys lifted. They had to come in between 7 and 9:30 this morning." I'm like, "Toot, toot, toot, toot." Like, sometimes I'm like, I miss when I first got here, the 2nd stint, I had soccer. I loved Coach Winkworth and Chubby, the staff and everything, and the athletes were awesome. And then COVID happened, and then I had to go to one sport because we had to do this travel with the Big Ten kind of thing, and I was in that little pod with hockey only. But sometimes I miss having other sports and being around it. And here I have an unbelievable facility at Mullet Arena, and it's hockey only. I miss having other sports and interacting with other student athletes. So can get lonely sometimes, even staff wise. Like, we have our little bubble, and as far as our athletic training staff, our director of ops, like, we're really, really close. But sometimes it's like you miss that, connection with others. And you feel like you're in a silo, I guess.
Oh, 1,000%. I can
Yeah.
identify with that 100% with basketball because sometimes I get sick of the other guys on staff and I just go hang out with the other strength coaches for the rest of the day. It's way more fun that way.
Way more
Um,
fun. Yep.
but you get to
Yeah.
meet these other athletes and you get to hear their stories. And I feel like it's a lot more refreshing. Not to say I don't love my basketball guys, I do to the death, but ultimately, listening to other athletes, and it's really helped me with my wife being the dietitian at the school. It's kind of like an easy
Mm.
break it down. Oh yeah, I'm Tessa's husband, and then we just start talking from there. And then you get to hear some really amazing stories about people overcoming adversity and figuring out how to be high performers. It's a lot more fun and it's a lot more rewarding for me just to be able to be exposed to as many people as possible.
Yep. I
Yeah.
agree. Totally
What
agree.
what other ways have you really seen the profession change? Because I know from people who have been around a longer time in the profession, they have said there's difference in training styles, there's difference in how athletes are from back in the '90s to now. What are the main differences you've seen?
Couple big things. Back in the day, you used to develop guys. You knew you were going to have them for 4, maybe 5 years if there was a redshirt year. So there was consistency. You can come in. They would come in as a freshman, and you would watch them blossom, and leave as come in looking like a little kid and leave looking like a man, or leave like like that was one of the best things. The development piece was awesome. Now some of these kids, with the way the transfer rules are, the transfer portal, I'm not getting my time. I'm not getting my playing time. I need to leave. I need to move on, greener pastures. There's a lot of that now that's going on. And it's really hard, for me, because I want to see kids develop and grow. And it's like, but okay, this kid has 1 year left and you can't slow cook them. There's no such thing as slow cooking anymore. There's zero slow cooking a kid, taking and breaking everything down and being basic because coaches want them right here, right now. Hey, no, we brought this kid into play. He needs to play. Well, he needs to gain, 20 pounds and he's not very big and he's, weak as a kitten. And I don't know. So your injury risk is a little bit more. So that's the biggest thing that I see is the lack of I don't even wanna say lack of commitment, just the change in the way the transfer rules have gone, and, it's hard. Athletics is hard. It's always been hard, and too many kids now, I think, and too many parents just quit and think the grass is greener. Grass is green where you water it, you know? At the same time, grass is green when you water it, but if you run into a drought, you gotta move on, and so the transfer portal does give you the opportunity if you hit a drought and it's just not clicking and not working, you can leave and move on. But I think kids nowadays are too quick to say, "Oh, no, there's drought and I gotta leave." They're not willing to deal with the hard times. They're not willing to deal with being told no. Mommy and daddy never told them no. Their club coach, their junior coach, never told them no. It's mommy and daddy. Oh, I'm gonna go pay out and shell out all this money, and I'm gonna find someone who's gonna tell me that my kid's the greatest. Well, the percentage, 75% of kids drop out of organized sports by the time they get to high school. It's a lot. It's 1 in 40,000 make it to the D1 level, and it's 1 in 300,000 that make it to the pros. Like, what are you doing to set yourself apart? And if you can't deal with a simple adversity of not okay, you're not getting the playing time, you're getting healthy scratched. You gotta ask some questions. You gotta look in the mirror and say, okay, what's going on? You can't just point the finger and blame a coach or blame the situation. Look in the mirror sometimes. So that's the biggest thing. The whole getting paid thing. I mean, back in the day, let's face it, guys got paid. It was just illegal. But they worked around it. Guys got
Yeah,
paid. Who you
for
kidding?
sure.
Who you kidding? Who you kidding? Now it's just legal to pay athletes, and pay to play is really what it is, and call a spade a spade. They're making changes to it with rev share and all that, but that's definitely different. Back in the day, you didn't have that. You went to a school, you played for a school, you were heart and soul for a school, and I do think now like it does give you the opportunity to where if things aren't working out, you can leave, and you don't have to sit out. So I do think there's some benefit to that either. Like, and some people just need a fresh start. Before you were, held to nope, you're stuck there, you're stuck there. Some kids just need a fresh start, and of no fault of their own or no fault of the program, it's just not a good fit. That's and the whole, you know getting paid and the, NIL deals and all that. That's different. I think that's kind of look, do I think athletes should get paid? Yes, they get their scholarship, they get, meals, they get flights, they get all this stuff. Do I think schools that profit off of name, image, and likeness, I do think there should be some back to the student athlete for that. But I think some of these, in my personal opinion, the $4 million deals, the $7 million deals, like everything is earned, nothing is given. In a lot of those situations now, it's nothing is earned, everything is expected, and what happens when you don't hold up the end of the bargain, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's changed. That's changed a lot, definitely a lot. I think our profession has grown significantly now. Like I said, I'm grateful. I have 9 staff members for the 25 Olympic sports that we have here. So everyone basically has anywhere from 1 to 4 sports that they take care of. Um, so we have a bigger staff, which is awesome. Which I think it's good, bad. You don't get as much, but again, we're at a Power 4 school. I think some people, younger strength coaches, are like, "Oh wow, I just have one sport." To me, it's like younger strength coaches, go get as much experience with as many sports as you possibly can. Don't pigeonhole yourself into one sport, especially at an early run.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was the advice I was given was, the exact opposite actually, was, learn to specialize early so then that way you can become kind of a, known as a basketball guy or, hockey guy, whatever it may be. And luckily I didn't really listen to that coach, and I was fortunate enough to work with a ton of different teams, but it's certainly changed the trajectory of my
Yeah.
career. And look at this, I still get to work in basketball. So the
Yeah.
sky didn't
E
fall, and I'm a better coach for it.
Exactly, like, House says it best, "Lifting is lifting, playing is playing." You don't have a bench off at halftime to determine the game winner. So, the lifting piece is a piece of the puzzle. The strength conditioning piece is a piece of the puzzle to the development of an athlete in their sport. Your best lifters aren't necessarily your best athletes or best players, your best skill players, and your best skill players aren't necessarily your best athletes. You have to learn how to figure out how to complement being a good athlete, a solid athlete, a healthy athlete, a resilient athlete, and the weight room helps build that stuff. I had a kid last year, Schmags. He was a beast. Like he was a beast in the weight room. Squatted 405 ass to ankles in season as a hockey player. Like, but he wasn't. He was our third line, or wasn't like a high minute guy type thing. And but he was an unbelievable kid in the weight room. But his you know, didn't correlate necessarily to the hockey player. He's playing the coast. Love him. Like he's a great kid, but it's not, you know, doesn't always correlate.
Yeah,
Doesn't.
my favorite sorry, go ahead.
I was just say even technology. So technology has changed a lot. And one of my best skilled guys, defenseman, best skill guys, jumped jumped to 28 on the force plate. And that's all he was 2'8". All right, 2'9" at most. I'm like, "But you're gonna tell me, like, oh, no, that's bad, like, he's a terrible athlete?" No, he just can't jump, like, he's not good at producing force, but he's got the most points as a defenseman, like, so and he plays 27 minutes a night, 25 minutes a night, like, it it just doesn't match up to me to some
Yeah. One of my
yeah.
favorite quotes is, "The best strength coach on your staff is your recruiting coordinator," right?
Mm,
Because at the end of the day, like, I remember, we did our progress pictures. We just finished them up, and we've got one guy who looks totally shredded, looks way different, right, and everything. And it was just like, no, he actually had an injury, couldn't train for a month, then came and trained with us for 3 months, and was a genetic freak, and also happens to be really good at basketball. So I showed the picture to our recruiting coordinator, and I was like, yeah, man, I was like, it was all me, being facetious, and he goes,
yeah.
no, you're welcome. So I mean, it just, like you said, those
Yeah.
things don't necessarily correlate. But one thing I really relate to what you're saying is it's difficult to look at people from a perspective of, okay, I've got 4 to 5 years with you now. If they redshirted, like, I remember there was one player who we first got in, and he was a really, really high level player. He was great for us. But everything I kind of pictured with him was, okay, in 4 years, this is what it's going to look like, and in 3 years, this is where your body will be, because he had a lot of work to do on his body. And I was really excited about that prospect. And we got to year two, and I was like, wow, we're making all these strides. Like, just imagine 2 more years, what it's going to look like. And like, one of the most heartbroken times in my career was when he came into my office and he told me he was entering the transfer portal. And, I couldn't
Yep.
blame him because he got offered a ridiculous number that, he
Yeah.
couldn't turn down. And I couldn't blame him whatsoever. But that was a moment that really made me change my perspective as a coach. Was I'm not going to have these guys for 4 or 5 years. And now I get really excited when I have a red shirt, because you're at least locked in with me for 1 year.
One
You
year.
probably won't have film, so you can't transfer out really. So you're basically going to be with us for 2 years. So now that's like the 2 years is the guarantee. I think it's hard to train like that sometimes, especially when you know what it used to be. At least that's what it's felt like for me.
Yeah, I did definitely feel the same way. Feel
Yeah.
the same way.
I think the money aspect you mentioned too is very interesting. One of the things I've noticed with it too is I think it leads to more transfers because people have an unrealistic value on themselves. They think that, well, this player who started for us and played 38 minutes every game and, got 500,000 from this ACC school, I'm definitely going to get at least half of that. And then all of a sudden they bump down a league and they're not getting paid whatsoever.
Yep.
I agree with you. I think these unrealistic expectations, and then a lot of people who don't really say no anymore, can really interfere with how athletes develop and how they look in the long run. How do you still kind of try to coach from that old school type of way where it's a little bit more hard nosed? Maybe you say no a little bit more, you be realistic. How do you kind of keep that alive even in this era of NIL?
Um, the boys know that I will run through a brick wall for them, and they will run
Mm,
through a brick wall for me. So it's meeting them where they're at. Meeting the guys. Hey, what do you need from me? And that's one of the first questions I ask every day. Like, what do you need from me today? And it builds that connection. And connection is one of the biggest things that you can do with your athletes. You build that connection. You have great communication, and they're just gonna work. And some of the guys that have come in, like they don't understand the weight room, and it's like, all right, well, how can I help you understand how the weight room is going to help you? How can I get you to see that you're going to get stronger, you get faster, you're going to get all these things are going to help correlate, not necessarily translate, but help correlate to becoming a better hockey player from a stability, strength, and power standpoint. It's really just having a conversation. It's having a conversation with those kids. Okay, what do you want right here, right now? It's just like when I worked 20 years ago at Boston College, the guys never did legs. The strength coach that was there before me, they're like, "Oh no, I can't. I'm gonna lose touch of the ball." They didn't really lift weights and all that. And I'm like, build a connection. Like, hey, what do you want to do? I want to dunk. I need more bounce. I'm like, all right, give me 6 weeks, and we'll start doing a little bit of legs. I'm not gonna kill you. We'll start doing a little bit of legs, and lo and behold, all their vertical jumps go up. Little vert check test. Didn't have all the force plates and stuff back then, and they were bought in, and it was like, "All right, what do you need from me?" And, you know, then if you need this from me, then I need this from you. So it's an equal partnership. It's like a marriage, what do you need from me? What do I need from you? And you make it work. And the guys know, like, they get pushed, like, in the summer, it's all voluntary in the summer for here. It's not like basketball. So, hockey is like, "Hey, if you're here, you can train." But my guys come in, I kick their ass 15 hours a week at least in the summer. We're doing, we're lifting, we're running, doing speed work 2 hours, and then they're on the ice on their own for another hour every day. And hockey's a white collar sport, but it's a blue collar mentality, and I love it. Most of the guys, they're not a whole lot of prima donnas. There's a few. I've had a few. But for the most part, the prima donnas get drowned out by the rest of the guys. And these are our expectations. This is what we do here, and this is how we do it, and this is what we do, and this is why we do it, and you better follow along. We have great leadership here. We have great leaders, and our captains as well. Like, this is a history. This is a tradition. Even our freshmen, like, I beat the shit out of our freshmen. I am. I tell the guys I'm an asshole, but I'm a funny asshole. I'll never say anything to be mean, but guys don't put the pitchforks up. Like, the first day, I had a freshman come in, and he came in and worked out, and the pitchforks were turned down. And so our first workout with the freshman was in our other facility. I'm like, you have to earn the right to come into the hockey facility. All of those before you lifted in this facility. So, freshmen, you guys are going to that facility. Well, that facility is 15,000 square feet, and we have about 15 racks of dumbbells. I took all those dumbbells and I turned the pitchforks down and dumped some of the 150s on the floor, 130s on the floor. I said, "Hey guys, you got 2 freaking minutes. Put the pitchforks up and clean up the fucking room." So they basically shit themselves and they picked it up and they learned from there that, pitchforks never go down, they always go up. And and it's also that connection of building, like, hey, this is where it starts, the mentality. It's like it's gonna be hard. You're gonna be asked to do some difficult things, but we're all gonna in it together.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, and we actually it just reminds me, we have, one of our redshirt freshmen the other day, apparently went up to the redshirt freshman from 2 years ago and was like, "I definitely have it harder than you, there's no way," and they got into a 15-minute argument about who has the tougher experience of being a redshirt freshman because, we especially
Yep.
when we recruit guys, we tell them, "Hey, you're gonna redshirt," and so when they come in, I'm like, "We have to be best friends, by the way, and you're probably gonna hate me, you'll be my best friend, but, you'll probably hate me for the first year, and then we'll get along just swell after that." But I love that you're able to still kind of keep that training philosophy. And it sounds like to me, a lot of it is going to come from leadership from the older guys and then leadership from the coaching staff as well, too, because that's how I certainly feel with our coaching staff here. We recruit guys who kind of seek that accountability level and who want to be, the best they can possibly be. And so, like you said, the prima donnas kind of get drowned out or they don't really fit in with the program. And it makes it a lot more fun to be the strength coach in those scenarios, too.
It does. It definitely does.
Yeah. Okay. So my final question for you, I'm really curious about this because I didn't know this about you. How was your experience competing in the World's Strongest Woman?
It was awesome. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
it's got to be incredible.
It was fun. I competed, let's see, well, powerlifting, I started in 1996. I did like a small bench competition between my grad and undergrad years. And then when I went to NAU, the other GA, Trevor, and there was a big weightlifting contingent up there, snatch, clean, and jerk. And I'd never snatch, clean, and jerk before. And Trevor's like, called me slow twitch. So he's like, "Yeah, I did a couple weightlifting competitions." He's like, "Yeah, you're not good with that." So then he took me to a powerlifting meet and I loved it. Like him and his wife, Michelle, like they're like, he's like, "You got something here." And then schedule wise, time wise, powerlifting just didn't, like, I powerlifted all the way through. God, I was at when I went to Nevada, I went to Worlds and all that stuff. And when I left to go to Boston College, like, the timing didn't work out. I was traveling with hockey or traveling with baseball or basketball at that time, and I just didn't have time. And then I met Charles Poliquin and Art McDermott, and then I met Bruce Tessier, and he got me into competing in strongman. And I lifted my first Atlas stone in 2000, and I was hooked. Like, I loved it, absolutely loved it. So I competed in strongman for a while. Went to nationals in 2003 and then went to World's Strongest Woman. So Jill Mills was the 2001, 2002, and then I was one of the Americans for 2003. So, but it was awesome. It was in Zambia. I was training here at ASU during a time like right getting ready for it. And but my whole garage was filled with Atlas stones. Like we made all of our Atlas stones. We had boxes. We had every piece of apparatus. Husafell stone, farmers carries, like everything. So, yeah, I was hooked. It was awesome. I miss it. And then I did kinda schedule-wise, went back and forth with powerlifting, and then from 2006 to 2017, I just stuck to powerlifting. I did one strongman competition, Scott Caulfield. I met Scott Caulfield when I was working at Paula Conformance Center, and in 2000, and I taught him how to flip his first tire. I taught Martin Rooney how to flip his first tire, called his ass out a few times. And, yeah, it was fun, like, that was Conan's wheel, and it was so much fun doing that stuff, and, adding it into your training too for your athletes is a lot of fun. Like, you don't have to do anything crazy, crazy stuff, but flipping tires and, having to move with load is a good training. Mm.
Yeah, well, it gets them out of the weight room, and I feel like they kind of get into it and they have a lot more fun with that.
Yep.
My favorite piece of always talking to anybody who ever competes in strongman is like, what does your garage look like? Because, like you mentioned, you've got a million different apparatus. I don't even know what the term would fully be, but there's just a million different things. And I love talking to people. It's like, what do you have at home? And it's always the Atlas stones at the very least, and then they kind of figure out the rest. So
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah, I have a picture in my office of me, here pulling a plane. So I had an opportunity to pull a Phantom F4 fighter jet plane. It was 14,000 pounds.
Oh my
and
gosh.
this was in 2004. The guy's like, "Where's the video of it?" I'm like, "Well, it's on VHS, but it's
Yeah.
not on YouTube." I'm
Let
like,
me
"I'm
go pull
that
out the
old. Let
tapes.
me
Yeah.
go pull out tapes." And they're like, "Holy shit!" I'm like, "Yeah, it's, 7 tons, no big deal." And they're like, "Well, how far did you have to pull it?" I'm like, it was 30 yards, 100 feet, and he had a minute to do it." So they're like, "Oh, I'm not messing with you, you know."
Yeah, yeah.
you
Now
know,
I need you to go squat, please.
Yes, please go squat. Please go squat. There's, yeah. Yep. Or they pull up videos, like some of the videos from me competing and stuff, and they're like, "Holy shit!" Like, I'm all washed up now, but back in the day, I was pretty
Back in the day,
good. Back in the
I
day, I
had
was
the
pretty good.
juice.
Yep. Now I just play beerly cocky for fun, so I can at least see what you
That
guys
still
go
gives you a
through.
lot of credibility for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. It's fun. It's been fun.
That's awesome. Well, Leanne, thank
So
you so much for coming on the show. Seriously, it's been really, really fun for me to hear about your story and hear about all your different thoughts because I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the podcast host. Personally, as a
yeah.
strength coach, I really align with a lot of your values too. So it's been very fun for me.
No, thanks for having me. Like I said, thanks for letting me invade your space when I was in Boone out visiting and, getting to meet you and like I said, see all the great things you've done up at App State. So it's awesome to see changes in this profession and good people in this profession and meet others. So
Thank you. That means a
yeah.
lot, seriously. And so it sounds like if somebody wants to apply for a GA position, best way is snail mail for you.
Snail mail. Yeah, snail mail.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Make
Exactly.
you stand out. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Leanne, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.